Alright guys, now on to the list that I actually do care about. The top 10 best movies of the year. My top 4, I'm gonna say top 4. These are some of like the best lineup of movies in a year that I think I've ever experienced. And I didn't feel the same about any of the other years. We're gonna go right into my top 10. I don't have any honorable mentions this time around, but as of right now, the movies that I do have on here, spoiler alert, most of them are Disney movies. Or movies that have been produced by Disney. So let's get right into it, guys.
Number 10.
Alright, let's go right into number 10. It's Deadpool. For the sole purpose of the other 9 movies were better. Let's be honest. I mean, Deadpool, as great as it is, as great as they got Deadpool right, let's face it, story is not exactly the best I've seen out of anything Deadpool related. I mean, character, great. Villain, one-dimensional. Not exactly like the best villain that I would put as Deadpool's villain, but maybe with Deadpool 2 it will be better. I enjoyed his whole backstory leading up to Deadpool and his jokes. I mean, if I said anybody was going to play Deadpool, it's Ryan Reynolds. I firmly said that.
Ronald Reynolds?
Ronald Reynolds.
Ronald Reynolds?
Ronald Reynolds should be playing this, but instead they got Ryan Reynolds. Firmly enjoyed it. I had to see it a second time. That's like one of the few times where I actually went to go see a movie twice or thrice. So, Deadpool's number 10.
Number 9.
Alright, number 9 is Rogue One: A Star Wars Story. Now, this movie I actually did see 3 times, and I will say, the third act, with the action, always holds up. Didn't get tiring after the third time around. It's just the rest of it that just kind of falls off. Characters I wish they could have done a little more with, and maybe they could have, like, did the pacing a little bit, but my god, some of the best action I've seen in a Star Wars movie ever. And it makes everything for episode 4 leading up to it make more sense. I also love the Darth Vader meme that's now going around. Do not choke on your aspirations, General Krennic. Everything else I thoroughly enjoyed with. Star Wars, keep going, you're doing great so far.
Number 8.
Number 8 is another Disney production, Captain America: A Civil War. Best action scene is the airport scene with all of them fighting. My god, that's like the best superhero action movie scene ever. The introduction of Spider-Man, which Spider-Man's my favorite superhero, so them being introduced in this way and fashion I thoroughly enjoyed, in his interactions with everybody else. The conflict between Captain America and Iron Man, which leads up to the final fight, I thought was some of the best conflict and dramatic fight scene that I think I've ever seen. And just the big oh my god moment when you got to the third act was like, not even my friend who's like a big Avengers fan saw that coming. I thoroughly believe that the third Avengers movie is definitely going to be interesting to say the least after this whole thing. So keep going, guys, with the Marvel Universe. You're doing great so far.
Number 7.
It's another Disney production. It's Zootopia. What more can you ask for? In these times where, you know, the whole race theme has become such a big conflict in our country nowadays, and the fact that Disney made a movie based sort of on the whole black and white race, the social issue between white and blacks, I didn't think they were going to make a movie about it with animals, but they did, and I thought that was so well done. I mean, I haven't seen Disney do something that intense with a social issue ever, and that's why I put it on there. That's why I was thoroughly enjoyed with Zootopia, because not only is it funny in a lot of ways, it has a lot of good things that can teach not only kids but adults, and that's something I think Disney does very well with. Unfortunately, there were others that were better, but I still enjoyed Zootopia. There was just 2 animated movies that were better, but we'll get to them right now.
Number 6.
Well, Austin just threw his poker chips on the table. He thought my number 6 was going to be Moana, and it is. The Rock singing, I mean, The Rock has proven that he can sing before when he was a wrestler.
You're welcome!
The songs in this movie are not on parallel with a lot of other Disney classics, but it's just the story involved of this young girl that's trying to become the queen of the island and how she proves herself along the way and gets help from the demigod played by The Rock. Moana didn't drop or pick up. It just kept going through very, very smoothly, no bad transitions. Moana, I think, is going to be a best animated feature top candidate, sort of competing with Zootopia, because I don't think Kubo's going to get it. And speaking of...
Number 5.
As you can clearly hear from the voice, number 5 is Kubo and the Two Strings. I firmly enjoyed everything about this. Matthew McConaughey in his first ever voice acting role as Beetle. That animation style, I don't get to see very often, so it's great to see animation done that way. And the whole behind the scenes and when they showed in the credits on how they did all that stuff is just amazing, amazing work. And the story is really well told. And it has a lot of Japanese elements in it, which I know Shane loves to death. I felt it was very original, and I know Lucas loved it to death. It's like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, that was so great. It was like the best animated movie of all time. Kubo and the Two Strings definitely is a top candidate, but it's just not going to beat anything Disney, because everybody loves the Disney movies. So now we're going to go into these.
Number 4.
Alright, so the top 4, very, very hard to pick. I haven't had this much effort in a top 4 in a very long time. But number 4 is La La Land. This is like the best musical of the decade, and I know we haven't had a lot of them this year. I mean, I know Into the Woods and Les Miserables are the two biggest in terms of like being recognized as the greatest of the decade, but these have very memorable songs. I mean, if you haven't seen the opening scene where they do the whole song on the highway, that is probably like one of the most beautiful and visual musical type of numbers that I've ever seen in a musical. This movie takes all the old classic musicals that I grew up watching. They show a lot of respect to the old style musicals that were done in the 40s and the 50s. And I thought, and a lot of the old Disney style musicals too, like Mary Poppins. And the interaction between Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone, I mean, these two have been in like 3 movies together, and their chemistry holds no bounds. I mean, they're just so good together. The only reason I didn't put it as in the top 3, I will explain in a bit. Now, I'm a humanist, and as a humanist, let me explain. I'm trying to explain here.
I'm sorry.
I'm a humanist, and I firmly enjoy movies that really are about ways of human life. This is something that is real and dear. And number 3 is actually a documentary. It's 13th. Go on Netflix and watch it. Probably the best documentary I have seen in a very, very long time. The whole documentary is based on life for African Americans after the 13th Amendment was repealed. The big question they're asking is, has the 13th Amendment really been appealed, considering that everything has happened over the course of decades? Just the whole process of life as African American life has been going on in ways that in ways that people have seen it. It was great as hell. Check it out if you haven't seen it. It will really open your mind to a lot of things that you didn't even think of.
Number 2.
Now this one I had a really tough time with because I didn't know which one to put. These are 2 very top tier films. I've never had it as hard as I did, but I had to pick one over the other. Number 2 is Manchester by the Sea. Casey Affleck gives the best acting performance of the decade. He blew me away with this guy who's going back to his hometown in a time where it was the biggest tragedy of his life, and now he's got to take care of his nephew after his brother dies. I mean, just everything that he's been trying to do to try to get away from his past is just very, very sad and depressing, but at the same time, you feel for him a lot. There's a lot of human emotion in this movie. And, you know, there were points where I was almost on the verge of tears. If you think you're gonna get too emotional with this, be prepared with many, many tissues. That's all I'm gonna say.
It's number 1.
So 2010, my number 1 was Toy Story 3. 2011 was Midnight in Paris. 2012 was Life of Pi. 2013, I gave to 12 Years a Slave. 2014, Boyhood. Last year, I gave it to Inside Out.
Better believe it.
I call this...
Hey, Alex.
I'm dubbing my number 1 now as the Dark Side of the Moon Award. The reason why I gave it this is Pink Floyd is my favorite band of all time. So I always constellate like the best with the best. The Dark Side of the Moon Award, my number 1 for 2016, goes to Moonlight. I didn't think that there was going to be a movie that would eclipse Boyhood in terms of like best movie of the decade, because I've been raving on Boyhood for when it came out to when Oscar season goes, and I still rave about it. But Moonlight is a different movie in and of itself in that it follows the same premise of following one character throughout his entire life. But it also focuses on 2 big social issues, like living dirt poor in Miami, Florida, and also focuses on the social issue of homosexuality. They don't feel like they're being played by different actors. It feels like it's the same character throughout 20 years of life. It just left me mind blown so much. I know Lucas enjoyed it to a full extent, and I know hopefully he puts it on his list. It is an emotional roller coaster. I mean, the way that this kid goes through his whole life is just so I'm not going to spoil it. I'm just going to say it takes you on an emotional roller coaster. Just thinking about it gives me chills. And I know people at work have been asking me, is Moonlight really that great as people have saying it is? And yes, it is. If you haven't seen it, please do before it leaves theaters. If not, wait till it's rentable, because it's that great, guys. It's that great. All right, guys, so that's my list for 2016. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it this year. I'll definitely be back next year for a top 10 list. I know that. Definitely check out Lucas tomorrow. Check out Shane if you haven't already seen Shane from yesterday. But until then, guys, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.
Go to Islam, and welcome to the jam.